All right, time to start my brand new podcast. Do I have everything? Did I watch a show? Check. Do I have my notes open? Check. Have a cup of drink? Check. Ask Brian if he can co-host? Aw, crap. I better call him.
Hello?
Hey, Brian.
Hold on, who is this?
Arya.
Oh, hey, baby.
I'm your sister.
Oh, shit. Yeah, what do you want?
So I'm starting a new podcast. I wanted to know if you wanted to co-host. We're talking Mid-South Wrestling and NWA Worldwide.
Sure, when do you want to start?
Now.
Hold on, now?
Yeah, now.
But you forgot to ask me.
What? Never.
Yeah, you did. I don't need this crap anymore. I'm tired of it.
Brian? Crap! What am I going to do now? Hey, you in the corner, you doing anything?
Oh, me? No.
Want to co-host a wrestling podcast?
Hey, I got nothing better to do.
You're already better than my last co-host. No, this is not a commercial for the Chevy Silverado. It is the long-awaited debut edition of Something Else with Arya and KJ. It is episode number 001. My name is Arya, and I am joined by my co-host with the co-most. He is calming with a capital K. He is KJ. KJ, how you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing good. And how are you doing today, Arya?
I am doing fantabulous. Thank you for asking. And we're here. We're finally on the air, KJ. I feel like we've been talking about this for a year.
We pretty much have, probably even more.
It feels that way because we've literally been talking about doing a podcast. Like, I know, and we'll talk about this with one of our segments coming up on Thursday's show. Like, I know we've been talking about this since at least October or November, you know?
Oh, yeah, because we're both into wrestling, so we thought, hey, why not do a podcast?
Yes. So, in case there's any confusion, because I don't know if anybody knows what the flags that are part of our logo are, I am a transgender woman, KJ.
And I am an asexual cis man.
And yeah, it's like this may be the only wrestling podcast hosted by this combination of people in the LGBT community. Not that there's a whole lot of at least open LGBT members of the wrestling media, but of all of them, we're definitely two of them.
And if not, we're probably going to get a cease and desist letter from the other transgender asexual man-led podcasts.
That would be a weird letter to receive, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Alrighty. So, I don't know what service you're listening to us on. However, we have a lot of different options. So if you don't like the one you're currently listening to, let me run down the list quickly of the places you can be listening to us right now. First of all, we are on angrymarks.com. We are on YouTube. We are also available on tinyurl.com/somethingelsepod. That will take you to our webpage for the show. And then you can also listen to us on the places where you would normally steal your podcast: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Podbean, Castbox, Overcast, Pod Paradise, Castro, Podbay.fm, and Radio Public. And I promise these are all real places.
I know I was going to say, I only heard of like 2 out of those 50 you just listed.
Yeah, I'm like, I thought it was a joke when I got to Castro and, Radio Public. I'm like, that can't be real. But it is. And we're on it.
All right.
There might be somebody listening to us right now on one of those services.
We're worldwide.
Worldwide. Alrighty, so this week's show, we're going to be talking about Mid-South Wrestling from December 3rd, 1981. And then we'll be back at the end of the show with a brief little segment. But for now, let's move on with the show. So continuing on with our debut episode, we want to debut a brand new segment, which, of course, when you're a brand new podcast, every segment is a brand new segment. But we're talking Weird News of the Week, where we scour the internet for a news story that, whether or not it's true, it definitely lands in weird territory. Today's Weird News of the Week comes to us reported by UPI.com. Authorities round up 2 mystery pigs wandering loose in Texas. Authorities in San Antonio said that they do not know the origins of 2 mystery pigs found wandering loose in the city. City of San Antonio Animal Care Services said officials received multiple calls during the past week about 2 pigs wandering loose through residential areas, and an animal care officer out on patrol was able to ensnare one of the wandering animals in a neighborhood. A second pig was caught a short time later by a San Antonio police officer out on patrol. Animal Care Services said the pigs are now being kept at a shelter while officials attempt to identify their owner. Officials said pigs are not legal to be kept as pets inside the city. It's a pig deal. Animal Care Services said in a Facebook post, they are not allowed as pets within San Antonio city limits and should not be left to roam freely in neighborhoods.
So I'm curious, the picture at the top of the article, the pigs look to be pretty small in stature. So, like, I just picturing these 2 tiny little pigs wandering around the streets.
Do you regularly see gigantic pigs walking around the streets?
Well, in terms of how big a pig can get, the pigs on this article, on the picture in the article, are pretty on the smaller end.
If you say so. I have to laugh about this because it's like, in some ways you have to wonder, like, why can't you have a pet pig? Like, I get that it can be dangerous if they get loose and and start roaming around, but that's the case no matter, what's going on. If I have a cat and the cat wanders out in the middle of the street, that's dangerous.
I'm guessing it's because pigs need different kinds of enclosures, maybe? I don't know. Like, it's kind of like owning a chimp. We were talking about this last night, kind of like owning a chimp. Like, you don't want to do that. It's a wild animal.
Well, maybe you don't want to own a chimp, but I mean, I imagine there's several people who do.
Okay, but when it goes full on Travis, I don't want any part of it, so...
Full on Travis. So I shouldn't invite you over to my place to hang out with the chimp.
Definitely not. No. If you ever get a chimp, keep that thing far away from me as possible.
I was going to buy you one for Christmas.
No.
Now what am I going to get you?
I don't know. Just get me another ace flag, I guess. I could hang it on the other side of my room.
There you go. Maybe you could tie them together in like a dress of some kind.
Oh, definitely.
Alrighty. This podcast is sponsored by the amazing people at BetterHelp. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's time for the sponsor plug, so I'm just going to fast forward 3 minutes. However, what if I told you that the next 3 minutes could potentially save your life or the life of someone you love?
If you think you might be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, or overwhelmed, BetterHelp is here to help. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you in a private online environment at your convenience.
Take it from someone who went through their own mental health crisis. Sometimes you don't feel comfortable talking to family or friends. It can be beyond helpful to have a therapist you can trust and who can help you get through everything.
BetterHelp has a network of over 20,000 therapists with a broad range of expertise that will give you access to help that may not be available in your area. All you need to do is fill out a questionnaire with your specific needs, and they will match you with a therapist in under 48 hours.
If things aren't working out with the therapist that they match you with, don't worry. You can request a new therapist anytime at no additional cost. Over 3 million people have already taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. And right now, you can get 10% off of your first month by going to betterhelp.com/something else. That's betterhelp.com/something else. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome here. It's the very first edition of Something Else. It's the very first TV review we're talking, and KJ and I are here to discuss Mid-South Wrestling from December 3rd, 1981. It was taped November 25th, 1981, the day before their last show at the Superdome. So just a quick little synopsis for those like KJ who don't know. Mid-South Wrestling, owned by Bill Watts, booked by Bill Watts, ran by Bill Watts. He's the Vince McMahon of Mid-South Wrestling, for lack of a better phrase. And his territory was Louisiana and Mississippi. He would later on add Oklahoma and Houston before attempting to go national in 1986, which, of course, unfortunately failed, and he eventually sold to Jim Crockett Promotions, who eventually sold to Ted Turner, who eventually sold to Vince McMahon, who eventually resigned in disgrace. I think it all goes back to, when Mid-South tried to go national. If that wouldn't have happened, maybe everything else wouldn't have happened either.
That's a very, that history is quite the roller coaster.
I know, and how can you prove me otherwise, right?
I know. My vast wrestling knowledge that I have.
Yeah. Now, for at least the first, 3-4 years that we're going to be talking about this, every one of their TV shows happens in the same exact location. It's the Irish McNeil Boys Club in Shreveport, Louisiana. And so you see a lot of situations, like we'll talk about there are these shows, where you see the same people coming and sitting in the same seats over and over again for years. And that's the thing with territory wrestling. It's like, the fans become just as big of much as part of it as the wrestlers do, because, again, you're seeing the same people all the time. Now, the lead announcer is a man by the name of Boyd Pierce, and every week he's joined by a co-host. Most of the time, it's Bill Watts, and this is before we're supposed to know that Bill Watts is the owner and president of the company. But this week, our first week, he's joined by Bob Roop. One of my favorites, but I don't think he's a great commentator, to be honest. KJ, what did you think of Bob Roop as a commentator?
I mean, I didn't see anything wrong with him, but, he was just like a regular commentator.
We'll talk about it a little bit in the show. I have a note about it, but I didn't think he was very good at extemporaneously talking for an hour straight. And basically, a lot of times with Mid-South, it's Boyd Pierce introduces something and hands it off to you, and it's your job to just talk and talk and talk and talk. And I thought there were times where Roop definitely was not doing that very well anyway. But let's play the intro for you. It's Bob Roop along with Boyd Pierce. And here we go.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Mid-South Wrestling Television Network. I'm your host, I'm Boyd Pierce, and we have a great card for you this week. It'll be headlined by Mississippi Heavyweight Championship match. The champion, Bob Orton Jr., defending against the leading challenge of Jim Garvin. Also, a special challenge has been made to Junkyard Dog versus Terry Orndorff, and the stipulation, if Terry Orndorff does not defeat the Junkyard Dog, he must leave the Mid-South area. Another big battle sees Ted DiBiase take on the Polish Prince, Ed Wiskowski. And we have other great matches coming up. Our guest commentator, a man who needs no introduction to the Mid-South area. His record speaks for himself, Bob Roop.
Boyd Pierce, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be on national TV. Also, as most of the wrestlers know, and the fans are going to find out, I've forgotten more about wrestling than most people ever learned, so it's going to be a real pleasure to offer the commentary, and I can guarantee it's going to be good commentary.
Thank you, Bob, and we'll look for your expert opinion from a professional standpoint.
Now, the thing also with Roop is he is legitimately a Olympian. He competed in the 1968 Olympics, and, you know, he is a very technically proficient wrestler. And they pitched to our first match, which is actually a taped match from several weeks back for some reason, of Bob Roop versus Buddy Landel. They didn't really explain why they were showing it now as opposed to, several weeks ago when it was taped. Roop wins with the shoulder breaker, which Landel sells by shaking his leg furiously. They come back, and commentator Bob Roop congratulates wrestler Bob Roop on winning that match.
It's always good to have a healthy sense of self-image. You know, it's good to acknowledge our accomplishments.
Of course. And did you have anything else about the match you wanted to say?
Yes, actually. Bobby Landel, I really like this coat. It was a nice glittery coat. I really liked that. And I did see the guy in the cowboy hat. You were mentioning him, how the same audience members are almost at every single show taping. Well, I saw the guy in the cowboy hat that you mentioned to me in the past.
Yes, and this gentleman in a cowboy hat, and I don't know his name, but he's just, the majority of the time, he just sits there with, his fist on his knee and staring straight ahead, chewing his tobacco, not moving, not, jumping up and down. He just sits there. And, I imagine his family is there along the front row with him, because occasionally you'll see him talk to the people near him. But yeah. I'm just gonna
name him Larry Dallas, I think.
Larry Dallas.
Dallas.
All right, so everyone write this down for future reference. The cowboy in the first row's name is Larry Dallas. And so in the future, when we randomly talk about Larry Dallas, that's who we're talking about.
And aside from Larry being in the audience, I don't really have anything else to say about this match.
I did note that it was kind of awkward because this match was taped several weeks earlier for probably a different show. Boyd was actually previewing the show the week that this originally aired, and they left that commentary in. So he's there talking about matches during the match that we're never going to see. After that, we go to Paul Orndorff versus Tony Charles. And I wanted to play the audio of ring announcer Reeser Bowden's introduction.
This event is for one fall with a 10-minute time limit. In the red corner at 248 pounds from Tampa, Florida, Paul Orndorff. And in the blue corner at 226 pounds from South Wales, Tony Charles.
And the introduction of the opening event on this week's great card for Mid-South Wrestling is Jerry Usher called for the bell. Paul Orndorff against the man often referred to as the wrestler with 1,000 holds from South Wales, Tony Charles. Our guest commentator, Bob Roop.
Thank you, Boyd. Both these men very, very capable. Obviously fine athletes, both of them, without very, very little excess flesh on their body. Their muscles stand out in sharp relief. You know something, Boyd? One thing a lot of people don't know about Paul Orndorff, among all the other things that he does, He's a philanthropist. Oh, nice move there on both men's part. As I was saying, Paul Orndorff is a philanthropist. For people who don't know what that means that he donates money to a worthy cause, and he's offered $1,000 to anybody that puts Ted DiBiase out of professional wrestling, which, in my mind, is a worthy charge.
So I wanted to include the part about Bob Roop saying that Paul Orndorff was offering $1,000 anyone takes out Ted DiBiase. And I also pointed out that Roop is stumbling over his words while talking about what little fat both men have, which is ironic because Bob Roop is not let's just say he's not ripped to shreds. He's closer to me-shaped than Paul Orndorff shaped.
I love how he had to describe what philanthropist was too. That caught my attention.
Yeah, just assume that the fans are idiots. They don't know what they're doing. During this match, they plug the Dream Match Contest, where you can send a letter in and ask for any match you want to see. And the gimmick is that the match that gets requested the most will be taped in their first TV taping in January. And did you want to listen to them describe it, KJ?
No, I'm good, but I am curious to see what the final Dream Match winner is going to be, actually.
We'll talk about that in about a month. You can start sniffing the bullshit now.
Okay.
But my favorite...
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, when they mentioned Andre the Giant, I was just like, I don't know about that.
Well, that's fine, but when you see the match, it's like that was the match that more people requested than any other match, kind of thing.
Okay, so it's not them just like slapping action figures together?
Sadly, no. That's on the other channel.
Okay.
I had to laugh, and this is my favorite part of it, was they list on the screen a chyron that asks you to mail these postcards to, and I quote, this station. Now, I want you to imagine being some poor schmuck working in the mailroom of a local TV station and suddenly getting 1,000 postcards asking for a match between Bob Roop and Ernie Ladd. Orndorff takes a phantom bump that Charles covers by going for the cover. A few seconds later, Orndorff does another drop down, and Charles drives to the ropes, which is probably what was supposed to happen the first time, and Orndorff won with a suplex into the ring. Now, when we talked about this before the show, I believe you said this was one of your favorite matches.
Yeah, actually, I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of grappling. It was very aggressive. I thought it was brutal, and I thought it was technically great. And one thing I noticed when they both fell out of the ring, that there's no audience barriers. It's just seats, audience, and then ring.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, nowadays, if you did that, if you think you have trouble with idiot fans hitting the ring, like nowadays it'd be nonstop. But back in these days, people actually believed, whether or not you actually thought wrestling was real, because let's get this out in the open here. Enough people knew that wrestling wasn't on the up and up in 1981. It's one of these great fallacies in life that everyone thought it was real until Vince McMahon said it wasn't in 1989. That's BS. People knew. However, people still believed that these wrestlers were legitimately tough, and that if you got in the ring with them, you would get messed up. And so there wasn't as much danger as you'd expect having no barricades and everyone just being right there.
Okay. Nice little history lesson. That being said, though, I'm on the shorter side, I guess, and I think any of those guys could still mess me up without much problem. So even if there was no barriers till this day, you wouldn't see me getting close to that ring.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I seem to recall that it doesn't take much to get you near a wrestling ring and into one.
Okay, but that is a totally different experience than just like walking up to some professional wrestler, okay?
We're actually going to talk about that on Thursday. But back to action here. Next up is North American champion Ted DiBiase versus Ed Wiskowski. To give you an idea, in case you don't know, the North American title is essentially their primary championship. It's the world title, the universal title, to Mid-South Wrestling. And they also have their secondary titles, the Louisiana title and the Mississippi title, and then also a tag team title, when we'll get into the tag team titles into the future here. But for now, it's Ted DiBiase versus Ed Wiskowski. Wiskowski is better known as Colonel DeBeers.
I remember you mentioning that Ed Wiskowski is probably one of your favorite wrestlers, no?
Oh, yeah. He's the best. I can't imagine a world where I don't sit and watch Ed Wiskowski matches for hours on end.
Yeah, you said you were so disappointed when he actually left and you didn't want to watch wrestling anymore.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to convince me to keep going because Ed leaves at the end of the month, and at the very least, he's not here at all in 1982. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Must be a rough year for you then.
I'm going to have to survive. Somehow I think I'll be able to.
I'll be moral support if you need it.
Immoral support, maybe.
Oh, okay.
So I want to play this audio next to Bob Roop explaining about being a guest commentator, and he doesn't do the greatest job of explaining what it means, and we'll explain it a little bit more afterwards. But let's play what Roop had to say.
In the ring.
Boyd, I wish you would remind everybody of the fact that as a guest commentator, I had to agree to stay here at the table because if not, I would be up there slapping Ted DiBiase's face because that's what I feel like doing every time I see the man. But I made an agreement that I would sit here and commentate and just commentate alone. Now, I have to admit that I'm very, very, very surprised to see Ted DiBiase go in there against a man the caliber of the Polish Prince, Ed Wiskowski. The man.
So the gist is, and this will get explained a billion times over the next few months, is that the guest commentator, the commentating table is, 50 feet off to the side of the ring. And so if you're a fan, you're sitting here thinking, well, these two people hate each other. Why is, this guy just sitting there and doing commentary? When they'll explain this in a few weeks, where they'll tell you that it's part of the agreement to do commentary. And if you leave the commentary table to go get involved in the ring, you'll face both a fine and a suspension. So, it makes sense as to why, Bob Roop hates Ted DiBiase and wants to go slap him. But other than the fact that he's a cowardly heel, he stays sitting on his rear end.
Because of the contract.
Yes. Because, you don't want to get fined. You don't want to be suspended. If you get suspended, you don't make any more money.
And that is not good.
No, it's not. And by the way, this is when I noted that Bob Roop's stream of consciousness commentary is not, at least not as exciting as Bill Watts, who we'll see in about a month. Bill Watts is one of those people that if we had him on this show, I would ask him how he's doing and then just press record and shut up for an hour and a half because he might not shut up. So Ted whips Ed from the corner, and Ed somehow runs off the ropes, which was my favorite thing. It's like, don't run corner to corner, run corner to the opposite ropes. One of the storylines we're going to see play out here first is that Bob Roop and Paul Orndorff formed an alliance, and that Ted DiBiase's finishers the figure four, and that Roop and Orndorff have discovered a way to reverse the figure four, and we're going to see that coming up in a few weeks. The finish is Ed diving off the middle rope, and Ted rolls through for the win. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah. So I thought they were great at switching between who was on the offense and who was on the defense. And that double knee drop on his arm was that looked real almost. Oh yeah, and also Ted is such a rule breaker. Ed was pulling Ted's hair.
I was going to say, Ted's the baby face, so I hope he wasn't.
Yeah, Ed was pulling Ted, yeah.
Yeah, I promise Ed and Ted won't wrestle again, so you don't have to have this problem again. By the way, I noted that Larry Dallas got up and walked off at the end, so he mustn't have liked the finish.
He was so disappointed.
Yes. Mississippi champion Bob Orton Jr. versus Jim Garvin. Not sure how the state of Louisiana has jurisdiction to book a Mississippi title match, but here we are. And I'm going to play the intro of this match, and along with Bob Roop talking about his figure 4 reversal here, and then we'll be right back.
For the Mississippi Heavyweight Championship, this event is for one fall or remaining television time. In the red corner at 238 pounds, from Kansas City, Kansas, the Mississippi Heavyweight Champion, Bob Orton Jr. And in the blue corner at 232 pounds, from Tampa, Florida, the challenger, Jim Garvin.
The introduction, and you see in the referee, Jerry Usher, displaying the Mississippi Heavyweight title belt, a sanctioned title match here on television between the Mississippi State Champion Bob Orton Jr. and the leading challenge of Jim Garvin.
Boyd, I've been trying to hold the news back, but I can't hold it back any longer. I'm going to repeat. Paul Orndorff has found a way of breaking the figure 4 leg lock of Ted DiBiase. We worked it out in the gym, and the figure 4 leg lock is going to go the way of the flying squeezy and the key lock. And in case you've never heard of those holds, because they're extinct. Now, the action in the ring here.
Now, I should note that he talks about it'll go extinct like the key lock. The key lock is the move that Daniel Puder uses on Kurt Angle in 2004 and on SmackDown, which almost broke Kurt Angle's arm.
I'm curious to know what the flying squeezy is.
I imagine it's a tremendous maneuver. Now, for those listening, this is not like when you think of Bob Orton Jr. and Jim Garvin. This is not Cowboy Bob Orton with his arm perpetually broken versus gorgeous Jimmy Garvin with Precious or Sunshine in his corner. This is Bob Orton Jr. versus Jim Garvin. The same people, just with the sports entertainment cranked down a bit. And by the way, speaking of Cowboys, I noticed that Larry Dallas returned during the match. So I'm assuming he just went to go to the bathroom or whatever.
Or he's a Bob Orton fan, one of them.
One of the two, or he just hates Ted DiBiase so much that Ted winning made him walk away.
Maybe he loves Ed Wiskowski as much as you do.
I was going to say, maybe he's just the world's biggest Ed Wiskowski fan, which is just going to kill him in a few weeks when Ed is no longer around.
That's why he's back every week. He wants to wait till he comes back.
I almost said Ed is no longer with us.
That's a little sinister.
I do believe Ed is still with us. I'd have to double check that. But Ed is not with us here on Mid-South Wrestling. Yes, Ed Wiskowski is still alive. He's 77 years old. And tap on wood, by the time this show airs, he will still be alive.
I know. I was going to say, if he dies between this recording and us uploading it, we're going to have to probably answer some questions.
I did that once on Facebook. I said I didn't know that some celebrity was still alive, and they died like a week later. I'm like,
oh, no.
Yeah. I put the curse on them.
You're like the Simpsons. You can predict the future.
If I was that great, I would have fled the country in like 2015.
And buy a tiny house somewhere in Eastern Europe.
With my 3 cats named Twyla, Alexis, and Stevie.
You planned this out, man.
I did. By the way, back to the wrestling. Boyd puts over matchmaker Grizzly Smith because, again, wrestling's real, and there's a matchmaker every week who sets everything up. And it's Grizzly Smith, and Boyd puts him over for making title matches on TV. Bob ignores this and just returns to his stream of consciousness. Did you notice, by the way, that there were big green splotches on the mat?
I didn't know, actually.
Okay. Well, there are big green splotches on the mat, and they're going to be there for a while.
Oh.
And yeah, I noted that this is not the dirtiest mat you and I have seen recently.
That is true, yes.
Yes, but it is dirtier than the mat that we trained on.
That's good.
Yes. Garvin, by the way, sent Orton into the corner. Bob somehow went groin first into the top turnbuckle, which just takes mad skill. And then Orton won with the pile driver to retain the Mississippi State title. What did you think about this one, KJ?
Yeah, I thought it was high flying. A lot of people were, they were both jumping through the air, I noticed. And I noticed Garvin was in control for a lot of the match.
Well, the champion has to make the challenger look strong because, the champion is going over and the champion over clean in this one. But you still have to make the challenger look good because, what if you have to wrestle him again? Plus, this guy then has to wrestle other people. So the idea is keep people strong.
Yeah, and one thing that made me laugh, I had to write down, it was at one point, they both squared up like Popeye. Yeah, they looked like they were about to fight like Popeye. And that's about it.
As long as they don't develop those giant forearm tumors that Popeye had.
I know, it's like synthol, I think, at that point.
Junkyard Dog versus Terry Orndorff. For those who don't know, Terry is the brother of Paul Orndorff. And the stipulation of this match is Terry agrees to leave Mid-South Wrestling forever if he loses. JYD, easily the most popular wrestler, as fans are jumping up and down for the dog. And believe me, they will be louder in the future. Now, for some strange, odd, unknown reason, Terry has a yellow mask that he puts on before the match, and this pays off. But first of all, Terry's mask is way too big for his head, and Terry's also way out of his league. Now, I'm going to play the finish here in a second, but it gets a bit wacky here. Let me play it, and then we'll talk about it here on the other side. Hang on one second here while I pull that up, and here we go.
The referee holding back Paul Orndorff on the scene.
Paul Orndorff coming over, and he's giving his brother something.
Oh, he just gave him a word of advice, didn't he?
Gave his brother Terry something.
Now, Junkyard Dog got Paul Orndorff in the match, and there is no disqualification, so...
Got it. Terry Orndorff is loading up that mask. He loaded it up. I told you that Paul handed Terry something, and he's put it inside that mask.
I couldn't see it. Now look.
And there he done it. A Junkyard Dog hit him, and there's something inside that mask with a head that the Junkyard Dog has proved time and time again.
Well, I didn't see it. I didn't see it, Boyd. Now, Terry Orndorff gets up, comes back in the ring.
That goes. You didn't say Terry Orndorff. He's going for the pile driver. That's Bob Orton Jr.
Well, he's got the mask on. I can't really tell. It looks like... And Junkyard Dog throws Terry Orndorff out of there over the top rope. Or the man in the mask throws him out. Mike George.
And there, Alfred Neely disqualifies the Junkyard Dog. There he's making the motion while throwing him over the top rope, which is a disqualification.
Well, the referee saw a man in the yellow mask over the top rope. Now there it is. There's Terry Orndorff in the yellow mask.
Now there it goes. Running away inside is Terry Orndorff now as the mask was switched, and he gives the match to Terry Orndorff. Alfred Neely disqualifying the Junkyard Dog while throwing him over the top rope.
I really couldn't see what happened, Boyd, but the man in the yellow mask got thrown over the top. The referee called it the way he saw it, a disqualification. The Junkyard Dog got beat again.
So this is a finish I had to rewind and watch 2 or 3 times to get everything. So Paul Orndorff interferes and puts something in Terry's hood, his mask. JYD slams Paul and goes for the cover, even though Paul is not the person in the match, and somehow gets a 2 count. Mike George, who's Junkyard Dog's tag team championship partner, runs in. Terry headbutts him. The referee gets bumped when JYD headbutts Terry Orndorff, because remember, Terry Orndorff had the foreign object in his mask, and JYD got knocked out, and he falls backwards and falls into the referee, bumping him. Bob Orton Jr. runs in, puts the mask on, but Dog takes care of him and throws him over the top rope. Now, the referee is just waking up, and the first thing he sees is Junkyard Dog throwing a man in a yellow mask over the top rope. And despite the fact that Bob Orton Jr. is a bit larger than Terry Orndorff, the referee assumed this was Orndorff, disqualified Junkyard Dog, and so Terry Orndorff does not have to leave Mid-South Wrestling.
The match was stolen, totally.
It was stolen. That was a hell of a finish.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like you said, you had to watch it about 3 times to get everything that happened, because that match descended into chaos real quick.
That it did. So Terry Orndorff beats Junkyard Dog, just talking about how Junkyard Dog is, the biggest star in the company, and he's losing on the very first episode that we're reviewing. But the key is, too, it's like Junkyard Dog loses, but he doesn't lose clean. And that's the important thing. Like we were talking about earlier with Jim Garvin, too, where it's like Jim Garvin lost clean, was made to look strong. Junkyard Dog took the entire match. The match only went like 2 or 3 minutes, but he took the entire match, and then Terry Orndorff lucked into the luckiest win ever. Now, at this point, we're 32 minutes into the show, and these were the main events of the show. Now, one of the things that people always bring up with wrestling these days, it's like, if the main event of Raw comes on at 10:30, you can turn the show off until 10:55 because the match isn't going to end until then. Whereas back in the day, they would put the main event of the show on in the middle of the show because it's real. You don't know how long the match could take. And in case the match doesn't go 40 minutes, there are standby matches to fill out the rest of the time of the show. And that's what we got here. First up was Iron Sheik with Skandor Akbar in his corner versus King Cobra. Cobra did get in more offense than I was expecting, including several nice drop kicks. My favorite part, and this is my favorite part of the entire show, actually, Cobra picks up Sheik to give him a body slam into the ring, but Sheik hooks his pointy-toed boots onto the top rope, so Cobra couldn't pull him over. But, of course, that just meant that Cobra dropped him straight on his face. Sheik then won with a German suplex and an elbow drop. KJ, your thoughts?
Well, like a good heel, the Iron Sheik started the match a little early. And I think this is going to be a trend with me, but I do tend to like the over-the-top absurd heels, kind of like the Koloffs with Worldwide. And I really do like the Sheiks. As of now, the Iron Sheik and his manager are definitely my favorite wrestlers in this episode so far.
Well, I got some good news and some bad news for you, playa.
Oh boy, give me the bad news.
Iron Sheik's only here for about another month.
Oh well, I mean, kind of like how you lost Ed Wiskowski, I'm gonna lose the Iron Sheik. So
the good news is Akbar is here for a while.
Okay.
So
in a management position or like in an
Yes.
actual wrestler? Okay.
As a manager. He used to be a wrestler, but injuries and whatnot.
Okay.
We then get a main event anywhere in the country. It's Brian Blair and Frank Monty versus Jerry Novak and KJ's new favorite wrestler, The Monk.
That's a funny way to say Big Show because he just looks like an Amish Big Show to me.
I noted that if I was to send in a postcard for a dream match, I'd pick, obviously, The Monk versus Jerry Novak.
And why is that?
Because that would be an all-time classic
Oh,
Classic.
I bet.
wrestling match. I want to go to back to Boyd Pierce for a second as he talks about what we can expect next week right here on Mid-South Wrestling.
Former football star for the University of Louisville, Brian Blair. But next week, we want to tell the fans more great matches every week. They get more and more, better and better. The popular little midget girls will be here next week. And listen to this battle, Paul Orndorff versus Ted DiBiase.
Well, that's going to be very, very interesting because without the figure four, Ted DiBiase is much less of a competitor than he is with it.
I just like the way Bob Roop announced it next week would be the popular little midget girls.
I know. I love that little foreshadowing to that match we're going to review next week.
Yes, and we're going to have a discussion about it, but here's all I'm going to say in defense. Like, it's 1981, and while midget is not a accepted term, especially here in 2022, if you ask the mini wrestlers, especially the American mini wrestlers, they will tell you that they were more popular and made more money as an attraction when they were referred to as midgets than when, I don't even know what they call it these days, like when there's a wrestling match on the show. Like,
I have no idea.
When WWE did it, they called it the junior division, but that was basically a childish thing. But it's wrestlers who aren't of full stature, for lack of a better phraseology. But this match was about as exciting as a match at the end of a TV taping can possibly be. There is so little to say about it that Boyd repeats next week's matches, and for the first, but definitely not last time, this match ends in a time limit draw. It ends just as the show is going off the air. Any thoughts?
The only thoughts I have on this one is I thought Brian Blair was pretty agile. Like he's fast, and I liked the monkey throw.
So that does it for Mid-South Wrestling. We're going to give each show a rating, at least when we remember to. We're going to give each show a rating, and I gave this show an even 6.
Yeah, well, I really liked that match between Paul Orndorff versus Tony Charles, so I'm probably going to give it, probably around a 6, too. It's my first time watching Mid-South, and yeah, I would say it was about a 6.
All right, so we both give it a 6. Hang on one moment, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. I've invited my brother Brian back onto the show. Say hi to the people, Brian. Take your thing off mute, Brian, and then say hi to the people.
Oh, hi, people.
Good job. Brian, you sound like a baby.
Well, it's I do have my 2-year-old here, so don't mind the extra background.
What a great professional podcast we got going on here.
Of course, come on now.
So Brian is back on here, and I think we should mute Brian for about a minute or two while I go through this, and we did. So Brian's back on here because him and I wanted to talk about something that happened to us recently. Now, for years, I've always said that I don't want to be the person who, when I die, people feel forced to say nice things about me. I'd rather you say nice things about me because I had earned them by being a good person while I lived. Now, we are...
Debatable.
Bite me. We are taping this on Saturday, August 13th. We found out yesterday that our mom passed away back on June 19th. Now, as I say that, I'm sure that raised a few eyebrows, But as you could probably ascertain, we are a small family, and Brian and I had no communication with her. To make a very long story very short, we were taken from her as toddlers and put in a foster home. And before I continue, I'd like to state that if we were to do a tribute show to the amazing woman who raised us, we'd be here for 6 hours and barely scratch the surface.
Barely.
If there is an afterlife, no one belongs in heaven more than her. Back to our mom.
Amen.
For the last 35 plus years, both sides would occasionally attempt to form some kind of a relationship. Sometimes it would last a few weeks, once it lasted a few years, but ultimately we'd all end up going our own separate ways. The last time I saw my mom was May 2021, which was actually the first time she ever met Arya. She was in the hospital. I went to visit her. We talked for around 30 minutes, and I thought it was generally a positive interaction. However, I found out that almost immediately, as soon as I left the room, she began talking crap about me, and specifically bad-mouthing my transition. So when I found that out, that was it for me. I wiped my hands clean, I blocked her number, ignored her letters, and just moved on with my life. Now, I will say this. I could sit here and tell you story after story of how selfish she was throughout my life. However, the most generous thing that she did was allow Brian and I to be raised by a family much better than she would have been, and for that, I tip my hat. Brian?
But you don't wear hats.
That's because I have a gigantic head.
So you can't tip your hat if you don't have a hat.
I will go get my Central Mountain hat, force it on top of my hair, and tip it.
Okay, we'll wait.
Did it. You go.
Oh, you're that fast, aren't you?
Like lightning quick.
Whew. I think the last time I saw our bio mom, because unlike, I can only speak for myself on this. My mom was the person Arya just spoke about who raised us from. I was, I think, 3 months, and Arya, I think, was like 6 or 9 months old. That is my mom in my eyes. I had a bio mom, and then I have a mom. Both have gone to, be with Jesus, which, is I'm okay with, because I know that they're in a better place. They're both no longer suffering. And yeah, but I believe the last time I saw my bio mom in person was my first wedding, which was back in 2012. I can't think of any time after that I saw her. Or yeah, I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't freaking know.
I think it was the Boston trip before or after I got married the first time. Do you remember or no?
I thought you got married in 2011.
Oh, yeah, 2011. Yeah. Yeah, I did get married the first time in 2011. So it would have been 2012 was my spring break in my senior year of college when I went to come up and see you guys. So like March of 2012 was the last time I saw my bio mom.
We might have discovered why Brian's first wedding didn't work out. He can't even remember when it happened.
Yeah, it's a blur to me. I remember the after party. That's about it. So I tried to stay in contact the best I could. But as Arya can attest to it, I'm terrible at returning phone calls.
Really?
And yeah, really. And unfortunately, that's all our bio mom knew was to have phone conversations. She didn't text, she didn't email. So there was times where I would go months and months and months without talking to her. And it wasn't on purpose. It was just, I had a very different life. She would go to sleep at like 6 o'clock, and I would still be awake. And by the time she was awake, I was asleep. So our paths didn't really cross that much when it came to, I guess, phone conversations or whatever else. I lived 10 hours away from her. So unlike Arya, who lives at one time with her and that one time like 25, 30 minutes away from her, I didn't have that luxury. I won't say a luxury. I didn't have that ability to just go pop my head in and say hi whenever. So I'm not really sure how to feel about it. I think Arya kind of put it nicely when she said that I kind of had the feeling like when a celebrity died, and I didn't notice celebrity, but you still feel bad. So yeah, I mean, other than that, I really don't really know what to say regarding it. Am I sad? Yes. Am I super sad? I mean, yes and no. No, because I know she's no longer suffering. She had a whole bunch of breathing problems for years. Not that she did anything to solve that, but she still smoked like a fiend. I mean, back in August of last year when she lost her wife, that was really hard for her because I knew her wife really took care of her. So I think I said this to Arya when she called me yesterday with the news, like, I'm not to sound mean or cruel, but I'm surprised she lasted the 10 months that she did. I expected her to go shortly after her wife went last year. So the last time I physically talked to my mom was January of this year. Oh no, it was on Easter. Yes, it was on March is when I last time I physically talked to my mom. Do I feel bad I didn't talk to her more often? Yes. But like I said earlier, I'm terrible at returning phone calls. So yeah. That's all I gotta say about that.
And KJ, I'm sure you have a whole lot to say here to add here onto this discussion.
Not really.
Yeah. And I
thought
do
that was sarcasm.
Yeah. I do want to give KJ a shout out because when all this went down and I needed someone to talk to, he was there as he usually is. And so I appreciate you being there for me, kid.
No problem. Yay for moral support. You're there for me too when I need it.
Sorry.
To be fair, I'm there for immoral support.
True, but support is support, I guess.
Yes, it is.
Sure.
So, kind of a sad, depressing way to wrap up our first show, but I promise we'll be back with more fun on Thursday. Hopefully less depressing. Hopefully Ed Wiskowski doesn't die before then.
I hope not.
Who?
Listen to the rest of the show, Brian. Listen to the rest of the show.
All right, I'll try my best.
So until Thursday, for KJ, I'm Arya. Have a great rest of your week, and thank you so much for listening.
Bye.